What if the person you love wasn't who you think they are? Imagine getting into a car app, tired from another hard day, and coming across someone who seems different from everyone you've ever met. An unexpected connection, conversations that make time pass more quickly. But what if this seemingly ordinary driver was hiding a secret that could change everything? This is the story of Mark, a millionaire bored with his life of luxury, who decides to pass himself off as an ordinary man in order to understand the real world. Along the way, he meets Lara, a woman who believes in love but has always chosen the wrong person. When the two get close, Mark discovers that she is in love with a man who doesn't deserve her. But how can he protect her without revealing who he really is? And when Lara discovers the truth, can love survive a lie? A story full of twists and turns, secrets, and a dilemma that could cost true love. Stay until the end, because this story may not be what you expect. The digital clock on the office wall read 22:47. Mark was sitting in his leather armchair, an untouched glass of whiskey by his side, as he looked out of the window at the world outside. He had everything money could buy, but lately he felt that his life was just a sequence of predictable events. Luxury, parties, millionaire deals, and a growing emptiness. "Are you really going to do this?" Daniel asked, throwing himself down on the sofa facing Mark. "I've already made up my mind," Mark replied, without looking away from the illuminated city. Daniel snorted, picking up his glass of whiskey and taking a sip. "You're a millionaire, Mark." "What the hell do you want to be a chauffeur for?" Mark smiled, twirling the car keys in his fingers. "I want to understand what real life is like. I want to see the world without being treated like a walking check. Or maybe you're just bored and looking for a distraction." Mark let out a low laugh. "Maybe, but what if I find out something else?" The next day he was ready. He put on ordinary jeans, a simple t-shirt and a cap to disguise himself. No one would suspect that the man behind the wheel of an ordinary car was actually the owner of one of the largest companies in the country. He started the app and accepted his first ride. A nice lady got into the car and started chatting about her children's lives. Then there was a university student complaining about exams. With each new ride, Mark became more intrigued. 2 hours later, he accepted another request. When he stopped at the place indicated, a young woman with a tired expression hurried into the back seat. "Good evening," he said, casting a quick glance through the rearview mirror. "Night," she replied, without much enthusiasm. Mark noticed that she was holding the phone tightly, as if she were dealing with a bigger problem than he could see. "Difficult day?" he asked while driving. She let out a heavy sigh. "You have no idea." Mark smiled slightly. "Well, if you want to swear at the traffic, I'll listen for free." The woman let out a short laugh, as if she wasn't used to finding lightness on bad days. "Thanks, driver, but I don't think even that would solve the problem today." They drove on in silence for a moment. Mark felt a growing curiosity about this woman. "My name is Mark, by the way." "Lara," she replied, looking out of the window. The name kept echoing in his mind. Something about that woman intrigued him, although he still didn't know exactly what it was. When they reached their destination, Lara picked up her bag and hesitated for a second before getting out. "Thanks for the run, Mark." He watched as she drove away, feeling that this would not be the last time he would see her. Mark didn't usually think much about the people who took his car, but Lara stuck in his mind like a repetitive song. Something about her intrigued him, and he wanted to find out what it was. The next night, without realizing it, he found himself waiting for the app to connect him to her again. And as if fate were playing tricks, his cell phone vibrated with a new race. The name on the screen made his heart beat faster, Lara. He accepted immediately. When they arrived at the boarding point, she got into the car, but this time she seemed less tense. "Look, the same driver," she said, putting her hair up in a makeshift bun. "Fate must like the two of us together," Mark joked, starting the car. Lara laughed, but her gaze was soon lost in the city illuminated by the window. "Better day than yesterday?" he asked, breaking the silence. She sighed, fiddling with the strap of her bag. "I guess so. Or maybe I'm just getting used to the messiness of my life. If you want to get something off your chest, I promise the driver here won't charge you anything. She hesitated for a moment, but then began to speak. There's this guy, Jonas. Mark felt a strange twinge in his chest, but kept his eyes on the road. Ah, Jonas. Yeah, we've known each other for years. He's always been complicated, but I like him. Does he know that? She laughed humorlessly. I think he does, but at the same time, I feel like I'm never enough. He shows up when he wants to, disappears when he wants to. Mark gripped the steering wheel harder than he should have. So maybe he doesn't deserve you. Lara looked at him through the rearview mirror, surprised by the firmness in his voice. It's easy to say that when you're on the outside, but when you like someone, things are more difficult. Liking shouldn't be painful, Mark retorted. Lara looked away, as if absorbing his words. The rest of the journey was silent. When they reached their destination, Lara hesitated before getting out. Thanks for listening, Mark. Whenever you need me. She smiled slightly before closing the door. Mark stood still for a few seconds, watching her disappear between the buildings. The name Jonas was now imprinted in his mind like a warning. He didn't know why it bothered him so much, but one thing was certain. He wanted to see Lara again. Mark couldn't get Lara out of his mind. He had met many women, some impressed by his fortune, others interested only in the status he carried. But Lara was different. There was something about her, a strength hidden behind vulnerability, a glow that he didn't want to ignore. Over the next few days, he kept driving, hoping that fate would put him back on track. Then it happened. When he accepted the ride and saw her name on the screen, he felt a chill in his stomach, an unusual sensation for someone like him. Stopping at the meeting point, Lara got into the car with a tired smile. "Mark, my favorite driver. Good to know I'm at the top of your list," he replied, smiling. "Hard not to be. It seems that fate wants us to keep bumping into each other." "And you believe in fate?" She was silent for a moment, looking out of the window. "I think it puts us where we need to be. But in the end, it's us who make the choices." Mark liked that answer. As he drove, he noticed that Lara was more pensive than usual. "Something bothering you?" She sighed. "Jonas texted me after weeks without a sign of life. He said he wanted to see me." Mark felt his stomach turn. "And what did you say?" "That I didn't know, but to be honest, part of me wants to go." He held back the words he really wanted to say. "Has he done this before?" Lara nodded. "Yes. Every time he disappears, he comes back as if nothing had happened. And I always end up giving in." Mark looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Do you think he's worth all this uncertainty?" Lara let out a weak laugh. "You talk as if it's so simple. Sometimes it is. It's just that we complicate things." She remained silent, as if digesting those words. When they reached their destination, Lara picked up her bag and hesitated. "Mark, do you think I should go?" He wanted to say no with all his might, but he forced a smile and replied, "I think you should choose what's good for you." She watched him for a few seconds before getting out of the car. Mark stood there, watching her disappear, feeling that this choice would change everything. Mark couldn't forget his last conversation with Lara. The thought of seeing her throw herself into Jonas's arms bothered him more than he'd like to admit. So, driven by a restlessness he didn't fully understand, he decided to find out more about the man who seemed to control her feelings. It was easy to find Jonas on social media. The guy oozed charm and charisma, but there was something forced about his image. And then, one evening, while driving aimlessly around the city, Mark spotted him. Jonas was in a fancy restaurant, laughing and holding another woman's hand. Mark parked the car across the street and watched. The man Lara idealized didn't seem to hesitate to flirt with someone else. He picked up the phone and thought about calling Lara. But what would he say? "I was spying on Jonas and saw him with someone else?" That would sound like jealousy. However, fate made the decision for him. At the same moment, Lara sent him a message. "Lara, I think I'm going to meet Jonas today. I'm nervous. Wish me luck. Mark felt a lump in his throat. He looked again at Jonas, who was now hugging the woman next to him. Without much thought, he replied, "Mark, where are you meeting?" She answered quickly, "Lara, at that new restaurant near the center." "Why?" "The same restaurant where Jonas was with someone else." Mark closed his hand around his cell phone. He couldn't let her go there, believing a lie. He took a deep breath and answered, "Mark, do you trust me?" There was a pause before the answer. "Lara, yes." "What happened?" He made a decision. "Mark, I need to show you something. Meet me in the cafe opposite the restaurant before you meet Jonas." There was another pause before her reply. "Lara, okay." Mark switched off the racing app and sped off towards the cafe. When Lara arrived, he was already waiting at a table by the window. She sat down opposite him, frowning. "What's going on?" Mark pointed discreetly to the restaurant across the street. "I know it's none of my business, but look who's already inside." Lara followed his gaze and froze when she saw Jonas holding the other woman's hand. Her face lost color. "He said he'd just arrived in town," she whispered, as if trying to convince herself that there had been a mistake. Mark remained silent, giving her time to process. Lara closed her eyes for a moment and then laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. "I'm an idiot, aren't I?" "No, you just wanted to believe that he was someone he never was." She lowered her head and sighed. "Thank you for showing me the truth, Mark." He saw the hurt in her eyes and felt anger rise up inside him. Jonas didn't deserve Lara, but now she knew the truth. Lara stared at the restaurant for a long moment, as if she expected the scene to change, for Jonas to stand up and say that it was all just a misunderstanding. But the reality was there, as clear as the glass of the cafe where she and Mark were sitting. "I'm so stupid," she muttered, fiddling with the coffee spoon without really wanting to drink it. "Don't say that," Mark replied. "How could I not?" She let out a bitter laugh, staring at her own hand. "I believed him every time. I knew something was wrong, but still." Mark wanted to touch her, to hold her, to tell her that she wasn't stupid, just someone who believed in love. But he held back. "The truth is, you see what you want to see," he said. "And sometimes hope blinds us." Lara sighed, picking up her cell phone and staring at the screen. "What are you going to do?" Mark asked. She took a deep breath. "I'm going to leave, and then, I don't know." "Don't you want to confront him?" She looked at him, and for a moment, Mark saw the pain turn into something stronger. "And spend another night of my life paying attention to someone who's already lost me?" "No." Mark smiled slightly. "Good. You seem to see reality better now." "Dear, thank you for showing me that," said Lara, her eyes finally meeting his. "If I'd gone there alone, he might have had one more chance to fool me. I couldn't let that happen." She held his gaze for a few seconds before turning away and picking up her bag. "Do you want to go for a walk?" Mark asked suddenly. She raised her eyebrows. "Drive?" "Yes, just drive. No destination." She hesitated for a moment, but then smiled for the first time that evening. "That sounds like a good idea." They left the cafe and got into Mark's car. He started the engine and took a road further away from the traffic and city lights. The radio played a soft tune, and Lara seemed to breathe better, as if she was finally letting go of the weight she was carrying. "Do you always do this?" she asked, looking at the road. "What?" "Rescue women from jerks and take them for a drive until they forget their disappointments." Mark laughed. "No, this is the first time." Lara watched him for a while. "And why are you doing this for me?" He kept his eyes on the road, but his voice came out sincere. "Because I care about you." Lara didn't answer straight away. She just looked away from the window, but a small smile appeared on her face. Mark felt that that night would somehow change everything between them. The car's engine purred softly as Mark drove leisurely, letting the fresh wind in through the open windows. Lara was silent, but unlike before, she didn't look downcast. On the contrary, she seemed to be thinking, processing everything that had happened that night. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "I haven't felt like this for a long time." Mark quickly looked away from her before turning back to the road. "Like what?" She smiled sideways. "Free." He felt his chest warm at those words. "So, it was a good choice not to go into that restaurant." "The best," Lara confirmed, leaning her head back on the seat and closing her eyes for a moment. "Thank you for that, Mark. No need to thank me." She turned her head to look at him and smiled. "Yes, I do. You could have just ignored it, but you cared. That means a lot to me." Mark wanted to say that he would do it as many times as necessary, but he didn't have time. His cell phone started ringing on the dashboard stand, and Daniel S.'s name appeared on the screen. "Do you need to answer it?" Lara asked. "It's nothing urgent." But Daniel insisted, calling again. "I better see what he wants," Mark muttered before accepting the call on speakerphone. "Dude, where are you?" Daniel asked, his voice laden with tension. "Driving. Why? Didn't you see the messages I sent you? The press are going crazy after you." Lara frowned, confused, while Mark froze as he realized what was happening. "What are you talking about?" "A photo of you was leaked. One from weeks ago outside the company. They connected the dots and discovered that a guy identical to Millionaire Mark was driving an app car. They're saying you're either bankrupt or crazy." Mark felt the blood drain from his face. "Tell me it's a joke. I wanted to, but they want answers. If I were you, I'd sort this out before it gets any worse." Mark hung up the call, feeling an enormous weight on his chest. Lara looked at him with an indecipherable expression. "Mark, what was that?" He gripped the steering wheel. I need to tell you something." Lara tensed. "What?" Mark felt his heart racing. He didn't want her to find out like this. Not like this, in the middle of nowhere, after such a good moment between them. He took a deep breath and finally said, "I'm not just a driver." Lara's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I'm the owner of $1 million company, and I was driving to understand what it's like to really live." The silence that followed was heavy. Lara blinked a few times as if trying to absorb his words. "So all this time, you lied to me?" "It wasn't a lie," Mark said, turning to face her. "I wanted you to like me for who I am, not for what I have." Lara let out an incredulous laugh, shaking her head. "And who exactly are you, Mark? The chauffeur or the millionaire?" He swallowed, but couldn't answer. Lara took a deep breath, picked up her bag, and opened the car door. "I need some time." "Lara, wait." But she was already leaving, walking quickly down the sidewalk, disappearing into the night. Mark felt an emptiness open up inside him. He had finally revealed the truth. But now it might be too late. Mark spent the next few days feeling the weight of Lara's absence. He tried calling, texting, but they all went unanswered. He didn't blame her. If he were in her shoes, he'd probably need a break too. But that didn't make the wait any less agonizing. Daniel tried to get him out of the house, to distract himself with something, but nothing seemed to matter. All he wanted was to see Lara again, to explain better, to make her understand that he had never intended to deceive her. Then, one rainy afternoon, his phone rang. "Lara," he answered on the second ring. "Lara?" There was a pause before he answered. "Can we meet?" "Yes, of course. Where are you?" "At the usual cafe." Mark grabbed his keys and hurried out, without thinking about anything else. When he arrived, Lara was already sitting at the table, absent-mindedly fiddling with the ring on her finger. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried a weight that Mark didn't like to see. He sat down opposite her, not knowing exactly how to begin. "I'm sorry," he said at last. Lara looked up. I know. I never wanted to lie to you." She let out a sigh. "I know that too. But Mark, I still don't know what to do with all this." Mark interlaced his fingers nervously. "What do you want to know? I'm willing to answer anything." Lara hesitated. "You said you wanted to live like an ordinary person. But why?" He took a deep breath. "Because my life never seemed real. Everything around me was always about money, power, appearances. But with you, it was different. You didn't know who I was, and that was liberating. She nodded slowly. I understand. But it's hard not to feel like I've been living a lie. Mark leaned forward. But nothing I felt for you was a lie. Every conversation, every moment we spent together, everything was real. Lara looked away, biting her lip. I just need time to process it all, Mark. He felt a tightness in his chest, but nodded. I respect that. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I care about you. Lara forced a smile. Thank you. Mark realized that this conversation wasn't a goodbye, but it wasn't a promise either. Lara was still torn. And then, as if the universe wanted to test her fate, her phone vibrated. Lara picked up the phone, read the message, and her expression changed. What's wrong? Mark asked, tense. She hesitated before answering. Jonas, he wants to meet me. Mark's blood boiled. Are you going? Lara clutched her cell phone in her hands. I don't know. Mark took a deep breath, holding in his frustration. If you need anything, I'll be here. Lara stared at him for a moment and then stood up. I'll let you know. She left the cafe, leaving Mark alone. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to ignore the growing fear inside him. Did she still have feelings for Jonas? He just hoped that Lara would make the right decision. Mark spent the night in bed. The thought of Lara meeting Jonas tormented him. He wanted to trust that she would see the truth, but part of him feared that the past still had a hold on her. The next morning, while sipping a cold, untouched coffee, his phone rang. His heart raced when he saw Lara's name on the screen. He answered on the first ring. Lara! There was a pause, and then she said, I need to see you. Where are you? In the park near my house. I'm on my way. Mark left in a hurry, driving faster than he should have. When he arrived, he